the official BMR Morning Conference. We are thrilled to have you all here today as we come together to discuss the crucial topic of the growing importance of global recycling within the Middle East. In the face of escalating environmental challenges, the power of metal recycling becomes paramount. It is a rallying cry to preserve our planet, to reclaim valuable resources, and to forge a sustainable future. By harnessing the potential of metal recycling, we can break free from the shackles of resource depletion and environmental degradation. It is a transformative force that empowers us to build a circular economy. Wherever discarded metal object becomes an opportunity for renewal. So let us unleash the power of metal recycling and shape a world where action today fosters a thriving and resilient tomorrow. Recycling plays a vital role in preserving our planet and making a sustainable future. It's incredible to see so many passionate individuals and organizations gathered here tonight, dedicated to make a positive impact towards the recycling sector. Throughout the day, we have an exciting lineup of influential speakers and panelists who will not only share their experiences, but give us insights and innovative approaches to global recycling in the Middle East. We'll explore the challenges, the successes, and the opportunities that lie ahead. But before we dive into the conference, let's take a moment to appreciate the collective effort that has brought us here today. Each one of you plays a crucial role in driving a change and making a difference. So let's make the most of this opportunity to learn, connect, and collaborate. Together, we can pave the way for a greener, more sustainable future. Without further ado, let's begin today's conference morning. But firstly, we would like to begin with the recitation of the Holy Quran, followed by the national anthem of the United Arab Emirates. So therefore, now I'd like to call upon Dr. Zainab, who will give us a brief recitation from the Holy Quran. Thank you.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Have we not expanded for you your chest and taken off from you your burden, which pressed heavily upon your back, and exalted for you your esteem? Surely, with difficulty is ease. With difficulty is surely ease. So when you are free, nominate, and make your Lord your exclusive object. Thank you.
Good morning. As we all know, recycling for future generations is an investment in the health and prosperity of our planet and all the generations to come. It's a way to leave a legacy of environmental responsibility resource preservation, and a sustainable future that we can be proud of. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, it is with great honor and privilege that I stand with you today to welcome the President of BMR to the stage, Mr. Mir Mujtaba, whose dedication, vision, and tireless commitment has led BMR to remarkable heights. He has exemplified exceptional leadership, demonstrating unwavering dedication to our mission and unwavering commitment. Without further ado, please join me in extending a warm and heartfelt welcome to the President of BMR, Mr. Mir Mujtaba. Thank you.
Thank you. Really so wonderful to be in front of you today. Trust me, whatever hard work or whatever the team has really done, and with you delegates and you guests being sitting over here in front of me, gives us the fruit that you all have acknowledged that we have really worked hard. Usually, I don't read the papers and all my speech because I do it naturally, but this time I thought I will have a small speech given to you all because there are a lot of important things which I like to convey my message. Firstly, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed international associations, national and international delegates, and the inspiring youth of today, I, Mir Mujtaba, your President of BMR, stand before you with immense gratitude for your presence at the 11th BMR International Conference. Before I move ahead with my speech, firstly, I would like to thank the leaders of UAE, especially the President, the Vice President, and Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum for giving us this immense platform of being in Dubai. It's a safe haven, and we all live happily over here, and such a gathering is not possible without the support of our Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, and we pray for his good health and blessing. A big round of applause for the leaders of UAE. As you all know, it's 15 years today that BMR has been formed, and the message of BMR, I would like to show it on a small screen for you all.
Once, the morning sun bathed us with its warmth. Pastoral lands elevated our senses. Majestic eagles soared as guardians of purity. Centaurs galloped freely across the heartlands. Children ran towards the blessed light. Waterfalls cascaded like nurturing tresses. But mankind's greed pushed her back to the brink. Her anguish rose deep from within, unleashing devastation. She reclaimed what was rightfully hers. Her heart aflame, nature screamed. Will our story shine or be masked in darkness? Our planet's future hinges on us, and we've embraced that duty. We need to understand the ongoing environmental crisis we face today. The world has evolved, and the responsibility rests on our shoulders. We must recycle to ensure a green tomorrow. Our planet calls for a savior, and we've answered that call. Once celebrated globally for tourism, sports, culture, and innovation, the Middle East now emerges as a recycling powerhouse. We are the voice of the Middle East recycling industry. We are BMR. Established in 2008, the Bureau of Middle East Recycling is a non-religious, non-political organization dedicated to environmental sustainability and recycling awareness in the region. The Middle East, a major global recycling materials exporter due to its strategic location, required unity. We've brought together all recycling stakeholders, becoming their collective voice, knowing that collaboration and teamwork can drive change. Our mission is to put the Middle East on the global recycling map. We collaborate with international governments and recycling associations, signing MOUs to share knowledge and boost global recycling efforts. Our vision extends beyond the present. We invest in the future, nurturing and empowering young leaders. BMR believes in teaching the next generation that the sky will remain blue, not grey, as they see it now. We are you, and you are us. Together, we'll lead the recycling revolution and reclaim our planet's true potential.
Thank you. As you see, the message of BMR has been clear. We used to live in such a wonderful life with nature, that man's greed really disturbed the whole world. And now again, BMR, along with the recyclers of the world, will try their best to get back to the nature again with a greener and a better world. Ladies and gentlemen, this was more than what I could really read. The message was very clear from the video which we have really shown today. Since our inception in Dubai, BMR has grown to become a global representative body for the Middle East sector. We provide a platform for recyclers to discuss business opportunities and address the obstacles and challenges we encounter. Our strength lies in our alliance with esteemed organizations worldwide. This partnership emphasizes our mission to promote responsible recycling practices and sustainability solutions in the Middle East and beyond, all while contributing to the global trade and commerce. Our mission is very clear: to promote responsible recycling material, recycling practices and sustainability solutions, protecting the environment, which is very important, which is what we are working for, apart from whatever it is the bread and butter for all of us, and simultaneously contributing to the trade and commerce in the Middle East and Asia and around the world. Our vision is ambitious. We aim to promote recycling awareness in the region, transforming available resources into raw materials while preserving natural resources. As you can see, it's very important 3 R's in our life: reduce, reuse and recycle. BMR envisions strengthening cooperation among Middle East recycling industry and worldwide traders and consumers, positioning the UAE and the Middle East on the world of recycling map. As you have been hearing from me since last year, with whatever my experience and whatever I have been looking for, I always say that Middle East will be one of the major recycling hubs in the coming years very soon. BMR has continuously been supporting and conducting global recycling for the last 5 years, and with this picture, before I move ahead, I think it's a real time that all recyclers give a big round of applause for whatever global recycling has been doing. And I'm so proud to say in this audience that Dubai municipality on 18th of March celebrated Global Recycling Day by cleaning the beaches in and around Dubai. And that's wonderful achievement for global recycling, which we have done. This year has been a real success as Dubai municipality, like I said, and all our BMR members in the Middle East have planted hundreds of trees in and around the yards and the industrial zone. I thank all the recyclers who have really contributed, and with one voice of mine, which we said that, yes, let's all join together and plant trees. They have done it. Thanks everybody once again for contributing this towards the safer and a greener earth. Ladies and gentlemen, the world we live in today faces a multitude of environmental challenges. Human actions have triggered a cascade of problems that threaten both natural and human systems. The solution of these challenges lies in recycling, which ensures the sustainability of the Earth's resources. BMR has been at the forefront of recycling awareness activities, advocating and responsible for sustainable practices. As we gather here today, it is paramount that we acknowledge the global significance of the recycling industry in shaping a sustainable future and a circular economy. Recycling is just not a business. Please remember, we are proud that we are recyclers, but please remember, it's just not a business, it's a responsibility we share towards preserving the environment and the resource we hold for the future. One point which I am really stressing now is that the youth, our future leaders. BMR is emphasizing quite a lot on our youth. As you can see, even the host BMR for the last 2-3 years, even the hosts are our youths from our own industry. We don't really hire outside guests or outside hosts to be there. I emphasize more on the youths to be the real recyclers of future. The youth, our future leaders, are watching, and it is our duty to inspire them to become the champions of recycling. Let us encourage them to embrace recycling as a way of life, making choices that contributed to a more sustainable world. Here I would like to mention that yesterday we have formed an international youth body under the head of Shaim Gadawal, and this youth body is going to really promote a very, very high recycling message worldwide. We are deeply grateful to the various government organizations that we have stepped forward to support the recycling industry. Their initiatives are instrumental. They are instrumental in promoting sustainability and encouraging companies to adopt eco-friendly practices. The Middle East plays a very vital role in global recycling industry. It serves as a crucial bridge connecting various nations, enabling the exchanges of ideas, resources, and expertise. Our region has become a catalyst for positive change. In this context, it is important to highlight the upcoming COP28 event taking place in the United Arab Emirates. I think the UAE needs a big round of applause for getting COP28 message in Dubai. The importance of this gathering cannot be overstated. COP28 is an opportunity for the world to come closer and address the urgent issues of climatic change. As recycling advocates, we must support and align with the objectives of COP28 as our work contributes significantly to more sustainable and resilient world. Here I would like to also mention one of the main COP28 personality is one of our panelists today, Mr. Salman Dawood. We welcome you. And yes, he is there, who is working very closely with COP28 committee. And technology advances have potential to revolutionize the recycling industry. Innovations in recycling. Technologies are essential to boosting efficiency and reducing environmental impact. Embarrassing these innovations will play a pivotal in our journey towards a more sustainable future. In closing, I extend a heartfelt message to the entire recycling facility, to all the passionate individuals and organizations dedicated to make a difference. Let us stand united, ladies and gentlemen, let us stand united in our mission to protect our planet, conserve its resources, and create a more sustainable and a circular economy for the future generations to come. Like I have always said in my line, and I always teach my children to come, that let's keep our sky as blue as possible and not make it grey for future generations. Otherwise, my grandchildren coming will ask, what is the color of the sky? They should not say it's grey, they should say it's blue. And that lies with us. And here I would like to mention many of our resources which are there under the earth. Even aluminium, what I have been reading, a small example, it may last only for 100 to 120 years maximum. After that, we don't want aluminium to be like a gold shop where aluminium is displayed like a gold for jewelry. We want it to be maintained, and we go ahead. Together we can build a brighter future, while recycling is just not a choice but a way of life, and where the Middle East leads the world in shaping a more sustainable and resilient planet. Thank you for unwavering support, and let us continue this important work with renewed determination and enthusiasm. Our future is you, and you are us. BMR stands in front of you for recycling industry, for a better and a greener world for tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amir, for such an inspiring speech. And hello and good morning to everyone here. My name is Yusuf Al Sharif, and I am honored to be your host for such an important session. Recycling is a growing concern in the Middle East, where waste management has become a growing challenge for many of the fast-growing cities in the region. There is an imperative need to address the issue of waste and to develop sustainable recycling practices in the region. So to speak more on this topic, I'm delighted to introduce to you the first female board member of the BMR. She is the General Manager of Rebound Plastic Exchange. Please put your hands together for this wonderful moderator, Ms. Mariam Al-Mansouri.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you've all had a good start to your morning so far. I'm really delighted to stand here before you in introducing the topic and discussion today. I'm also very honored and pleased and grateful to be speaking with 4 highly inspiring individuals that have paved the way in recycling for decades, and we will learn more in terms of their efforts and what that has reflected upon. When we talk about the Middle East is crucial in shaping foreign trade. It is a hub. Imports and exports are truly important, and recycling and circularity needs such supporting grounds and foundations for the economic side of things beyond just the environmental. We live in a region where things are fast-paced. With the Year of Sustainability being 2023 and with COP28 just around the corner, there are so many events and conversations, but I can stand here before you and tell you that BMR is truly unique in its experience and the value which the past 24 and the current 24 hours will bring. Before inviting my panelists on the stage, I would just like to open up the, let's say, topic with a quote from our founding father, Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan. He said, "On land and in the sea, our forefathers lived and survived in this environment by only using what they needed to live, and they kept and preserved the resources for the future generations to come." So they recognize the need to always preserve, and this is the importance of the recycling industry. Without further ado, I would like to call upon our panelists today, Mr. Mohammed Al-Ahmadi, the CEO of Ducap Metals Business, Mr. Salman Abdallah, the Executive Vice President of ESG and Sustainability from Emirates Global Arena, Mr. Nasser Abdullah, our Honorary Chairman at BMR, and last but not least, Mr. Ranjit Baksir, the President of the Global Recycling Foundation. So, given, let's say, the time we have, I would like to maybe hear first from Mr. Salman. You talked about, green, carbon-free material and how recycling helps in achieving and attaining such an aspect. With your experience in recycling, what are the reasons, or let's say, why recycle and how can you attain carbon-free materials today, and as an advice for businesses to integrate within their practices?
Thank you very much, and once again I'd like to first of all thank to the management of BMR for inviting me. I think this is the 4th year I'm coming as a panelist, so really appreciate it. It's a really privilege to talk to all of you. When it comes to recycling, I will limit my comments only to the aluminum recycling because that's what I know about, not as much as you guys, but from a primary producer perspective, that's all I'm going to talk about. So why is recycling important? There was a recent interview, which I've just posted on LinkedIn, if you like to see in detail, that it's a paradoxical metal. Aluminium, primary to produce, is highly energy intensive. However, when you use the recycled metal, recycled aluminium, it only takes a fraction, in fact, less than 5% of the same energy as it is required to produce primary aluminum. Why do I say it's paradoxical? It's paradoxical because whilst it's energy intensive, it is an essential metal for a future which has been decarbonized. It is used in aircrafts, it is used in light EV vehicles, it is used in solar panels. So how do we hit a balance? We carried out a recent survey with IEI based in London of what is the recycling or aluminum can collection percentage in different parts of the world. I will tell you, in Germany it was way above 70%. Mashallah, we have a lot of recyclists here. Anybody wants to hazard a guess? How much is it in UAE? Any number? How much cans do we collect? 100%. Anybody else? It's less than 33%. It's all going to the landfill. So, why is that the case? Is it the cultural aspects? Is it the infrastructure policies? And so this we need to understand. So recycling is extremely important because it reduces the energy content and the carbon footprint per ton of metal. However, and this is a big however, we have been talking I'm talking personally at this forum for last 4 years, we cannot be using heavy oil for recycling aluminum. Yes, you can recycle it, but it will never enter our supply chain. You can recycle with the least carbon energy, but if the governance and social aspects are not taken care of, if we have modern slavery built into our system, if the supplier cannot even advise us what is the carbon footprint of the metal they are providing us, if they cannot tell us what is the methodology, how they did that LCA analysis, it will not enter the supply chain of EGA. So extremely important area, but there's a lot of homework to be done.
Thank you so much. No, completely agreed, and I think we can all relate regardless of the material we recycle. For instance, I'm more on the plastics recycling scale of things, and what you touched upon are similar in terms of transparency, efficiency of recycling within countries and regions, but of course the culture of people is the most important nucleus of behavioral change. Mr. Mohammed, over to you. When we spoke shortly the last week, you spoke how recycling used to be good to have, but now it's a must-have. And you know, coming from Ducap Metals, you're a very well-known Emirati-based or Emirati-created brand. You export over 95% of the materials you produce. You have a global overview of the market. What really spiked the urgency to start recycling? Where do you see it heading? And have you noticed any certain change of conversational tones the past couple of years when you talk about the importance of this industry?
I think several initiatives spike and accelerate the journey of recycling. I will speak briefly about 3 of them. Obviously, starting with environmental regulations and government mandate become one of the important accelerator. Secondly, this phenomena become an important ticket for any company try to approach the global market. It's become a growing requirements in the global market, and it's become one of the important value propositions for any global player to have a recycling within their ecosystem. The third, as we remember that in the last couple of years there were many disruptions in the global supply chain. Recycled material become one of the important mitigation to service the market when there are lack of availability on the prime material.
Thank you, and I think you paved the way maybe to heading over to Mr. Nasser. Mr. Hamid was just saying how, you know, the events of the recent global supply chain let's say, alterations, especially with the global pandemic which took place, countries started realizing the value of their raw materials or available recyclable materials to take place. And when we spoke, you talked about how previously the GCC used to export much of its recyclable materials, and currently it's keeping it into consuming. So with that taking place, what are the current challenges that you foresee in, or let's say experience in the local atmosphere of recycling within the GCC and within the Middle East? What are your recommendations, especially upon the facts that Mr. Salman shared a couple of minutes ago?
Thank you, Mariam. Good morning, everyone. Challenges. Our industry is full of challenges. I am in this industry for more than 40 years, and we face challenges. As mentioned in Mr. Mir opening message, and as well as your remarks, the Middle East, our region in particular, is a vital region for recycling. It is initially a main supplier to most of the world recycling or producer centers for recycling metals, and now, as mentioned, it is developing to be also a local, it will be coming to be an important recycling center itself, where the material will be consumed locally for DUCAP, for EGA, and other major producers as well. We face a lot of challenges. If we talk about what Salman mentioned, they need responsible suppliers, they need responsible recyclings. We have to meet ESG, we have to meet EPR requirements, and this puts a huge pressure on us as recyclers to meet these requirements. Even when we are working with other countries like India or China, they have their own requirements, they have their own standards, they have their own classifications, and we must face all these issues. Global events will affect us locally. If we take to the UAE, recently in the last few years, the UAE government introduced the VAT system. Now we are facing the corporate tax coming up, requirements, regulatory requirements, certifications, you name it. You can keep talking about all the challenges, but okay, we are resilient, we are a strong industry, we are always facing up to these challenges. We find the ways how to cope with it and to meet all these requirements and challenges.
Thank you. You mentioned standards, and that I'll put, let's say, we'll explore this topic more in just a few seconds, but with challenges touching upon a lot of industries, mainly recycling, because it's kind of an industry which is unfortunately categorized within waste management in a lot of countries, and there are two completely different horizons. You cannot compare them, and you need that to be addressed at a very high state level, so that the, let's say, rewards and subsidies are crafted accordingly. Maybe from a global perspective, I'll give it to Mr. Ranji. You've managed a lot of these, perhaps, or you've seen some of these challenges take place in countries abroad, mainly Europe, with your experience. From a global perspective, what do you think are the benefits to recycling and the common complexities around the world?
Thank you, Mariam. Interesting question. Economic growth is the story of today, and we are seeing more and more consumer demand growing at a very exponential rate. Middle classes in the world are growing very fast. India, we talked recently. India, I see by the end of this decade, we'll have over 500 million middle class consumers. So the demand for goods are increasing. Global population is going to touch 8 billion by 2050, 10 billion. Now we are at 8 billion. So with this consumer demand, they say we need 2 planets to serve the demand of this planet alone. So really, recycling to me is not only the savior, it's a necessity of today to be able to generate those critical raw materials to support our industries to continue producing the goods. As a founder of Global Recycling Day, we coined the term the 7th resource. What recycling is generating is very valuable raw material for the industry, and we call it the 7th resource. Recycling saves something like over 1 billion tons of CO2 emission, and it provides employment to over 10 million people. So recycling is playing a very important role in our global economies as the world is growing. I'm really pleased to say in this region where we are positioned today, His Excellency the President of UAE has declared 2023 as the year of sustainability. It's very important when the leaders of our country recognize the work that you all are doing in this room and people across the world are doing. It makes recycling the cornerstone of success for industrial growth as well as for reducing or saving the valuable resources. Recycling also contributes in saving, I wrote some notes on sustainable goals. We meet at least 5 or 6 important USD sustainable goals. Resource efficiency by reducing waste. Responsible consumption and production is sustainable goal number 12. And here I would like to congratulate you, Mariam, for your effort in setting up the plastic rebound. Reducing plastic waste, I think, is a very, very important role this industry is playing. And Mariam leading this recycling plastic rebound is a very important initiative, and I wish you success in what you're doing. Good health and well-being and supporting a healthy ecosystem, sustainable goal number 3, is also a result of recycling, reducing waste, promoting a healthy environment. Clean energy, waste to energy is another aspect this industry contributes, sustainable goal number 7, and building sustainable cities and communities, sustainable goal number 11. All this together helps us meet the net zero 2050 goals. Your second part of the question, you asked me, what are the complexities this will arise? I think at BIR, when I was a president before and even today with our current president Suzy Barrage and our Director General Arno, we are always saying that recycling is an untold story. Why we say that is not for the people in this room. We say that for the civil society. Until the waste creator recognizes and understands the importance of recycling, and he believes the chain of recycling starts with him or her, the real ambassadors of this planet, we will not really succeed. So the complexities to me is education, raising awareness, and making people think recycling from day one, which is the creator of waste. We also need to share our challenge with recycling, I think, with the global leaders, the G7, G20, COP28, so that we can help drive the 7th resource vision for our planet. In summary, the complexities that I see is we need to help unrestricted free flow of trade of our raw material to help reduce pollution, reduce excessive regulatory controls. Every country today is imposing unnecessary regulation as far as movement of waste is concerned. I think this needs to be stopped. We need to raise the voice and say controls are important, but excessive controls don't help the trade. Recognize circular economy as a global economy and not regional economy. Europe is trying to bring in controls of you can't move waste from Europe, outside Europe, inside Europe. I think all this is unnecessary. Circular economy is a global phenomenon. I mean, today the value of circular economy is over $1 trillion, the wealth it generates. And I was looking at World Economic Forum, I think some Accenture or some authority has done a survey, and they are saying the wealth that circular economy will generate by 2050 is a staggering $25 trillion, which is more than the US economy. For God's sake, let's make it work. And finally, we need to harmonize the language specification of the trade so that this critical raw material collection, sorting, and consumption can be enhanced and waste to landfill is decreased. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ranjit. And it's a very comprehensive outlook in terms of the benefits, but also global complexities. Your last point touched upon specifications, and so I'd like to go back to Mr. Salman. But before maybe giving EGA the mic, let me reflect on plastics recycling. You know, today there is no global common language when we want to trade material from country A to country B. What might be a grade A for someone in Germany might be a grade C for us here in the UAE and vice versa. So recyclers struggle to price, buyers struggle when they come to negotiate and want to inspect the material, and there's a lot of confusion. Whether it's an industry-based specification standard and language, or even whether it's a regulation-based standard and specification. And today in the UAE, I can proudly state and share that the government started to form private sector roundtables and conversations to get their opinion on how PPP can work, which stands for public-private partnerships, on specification standards to harmonize trades and have fewer restrictions. So, Mr. Salman, you talked about how standards will play a very important role in equalizing the circularity of materials globally. Can you share with us just a bit more with the audience here today?
Yeah, thank you, Mariam. Once again, my comments are limited to the aluminum industry, and particularly primary and secondary. So on this forum, I've mentioned previously, there is an organization which was put together almost now a decade ago called Aluminium Stewardship Initiative. It's based in Australia. The strength of ASI, as the acronym, is that it's not only got the consumers and the suppliers of aluminum, but also civil societies, NGOs, and more recently, SBT, or Science-Based Target Institute, have also joined. What does that mean? That these guys and girls put together performance standards. I don't know about other industry if the commonality of the language is not there, but through ASI, very clear 100 plus KPI have been identified under the pillars of E, S, and G. And if you want to become a member, you can become a member of ASI right away. You fill up an application. But you, within 2 years, have to meet those performance standards. And if in your second audit you don't meet it, you will be very politely told to leave. So it is brutally transparent and brutally honest. And all of you can see what are the non-compliances of each ASI organization. So if you go to the ASI site, you can go to Jebel Ali and Tawila, and you can see what are EGA's non-compliance. And then we have given a time to clear it up. So these standards are there, and most of our recyclers in the Middle East don't follow it. And that's why it becomes extremely difficult that when we audit and we want to incorporate them in the supply chain, we just cannot do that, because if we have a non-ASI in our supply chain, it reflects on our end product. So this is super duper important. Our participants said that there should be a free flow. Yes, there should be a free flow, but every kilometer a scrap follows, what is it doing? It is attracting a carbon footprint. So that's why more and more authorities want to consume this extremely important item within their region. My fellow participants said that there should be no rules and regulations. You wait 6 weeks. COP28 is coming. The new NDC, which is nationally determined contributions from UAE, are sitting at the cabinet. These will be signed off, and you, all of us as an industry, will have to reduce our emissions by 12 to 15% in 8 years. Now, if it's a surprise to any one of you, you have been on a different planet. This is coming. This is real. Okay? Why is this bringing in these regulations? Because when we run our business, including myself, we are not doing it because we have ESG as our values. We have ESG as our hobbies. You know, when the CFO tells me, Salman, if we do this with the contractor, it's more expensive, let's not do it. And if we give up their minimum pay, that there's no modern slavery, I'm talking about the standards. If let's do it next year, it was never my value. It was a hobby, you know? And my main value is the P&L, the bottom line. So please, guys, I have been saying this for the last 3 to 4 years. Many of the industries, many of the, not just recyclers, but businesses will not be part of niche value chains if we don't step up. Aluminium recycled is an extremely important product, but it has to be recycled in a very responsible manner. So that's what I say about the standards. They are out there. Please check out the ASI standards. They are available on the web. Check out my non-compliances as well, and make your decisions.
No, thank you, and thank you for that insight on what developments the UAE is driving for COP28. I'm sure, you know, end of November and beginning of December will be a very interesting time for all of us. And you talked about recycling things regionally, both yourself and Mr. Ranjit and Nasser, which I completely agree with personally when we talk about forget plastic recycling, any type of recycling, whether it's e-waste, textile, metal, aluminum. You cannot mushroom multiple recycling facilities in one country. Locally, countries cannot close their borders and say they will deal with all of their waste. There will be unnecessary competition, fluctuation of availability of supply, and the transparency will really be very limited. Whereas if you build upon regional capacities and capabilities, this is what would really contribute to a safer, cleaner environment. Trading with your country next door is much safer and faster and healthier for the environment than building up your own, 25, 30 facilities, consuming land, energy, and also other aspects to recycle a material regardless of what it is. We talked about the standards, the benefits of recycling, and Mr. Salman has one more thing perhaps.
I apologize for breaking your rhythm, but I forgot to mention one thing, that when we all go back home today, if you ask your accountant what is the P&L in 2019, he'll press a few buttons and you'll get it. The NDCs, which is in the cabinet, the number I mentioned, 12%, is not signed yet. It will be signed before COP28. But my request is, just as a homework, when you go home today, ask your accountant or anybody in the organization, what was our carbon footprint in 2019? Because that's going to be the base year. So from 2019, whatever was the carbon footprint, we will all have to reduce it by 12% by 2030. So if you don't know what the baseline is, you realize, and this is not next year, 5 years, 2050. This is in 6 to 8 weeks' time. And it will be the law of the land. So I just wanted to...
Sounds good. I think
I'm afraid I'm being maybe challenging, and I'm worried maybe I will not be invited next year.
No, you definitely will, and everyone's going to do their 2019 assessment for sure as homework. I think I do want to turn it to Mr. Mohammed and maybe ask him about, since 2013, what has been your environmental impact within your sustainability journey? I know the environment is very important and preserving our planet, but the economic benefits also come along, and that's a point that Mr. Ranjit touched upon. So what can you share with us through your experiences, and maybe what can be a motivating factor for other large producers and corporates and multinationals such as yourself?
Well, as you said, balancing between environment and economy is quite challenging, but we are toward that. In the metal industry, specifically, which include mining, smelting, and manufacturing, there are a significant impact on the environment. Sustainable efforts aim to mitigate these impacts by adopting cleaner technology, reduce the energy consumptions, and minimize waste. In Ducab Metal, we believe that we were contributing in the full value chain along with our partner and supplier in order to enhance the full ecosystem, where we work with them in focusing how we enhance the service, how we integrate the processes from the recycled suppliers with our processes to make it smooth. We focus on many important elements in our processes, which is safety, material handling, packaging, and of course, the quality of the material. As well, in the last couple of years, we managed to achieve a significant improvement in our energy consumptions, where we reduce the energy consumptions with approximately 10% by maximizing our usages of scrap, i.e., all of this will become definitely on many economic benefits as well as environmental benefits.
Thank you for sharing. And it's, there are ratios today that are being tested and proven that typically when you talk about economic impacts from a recycling perspective, it is 7 to 10 times more than other industries, whether it's job creation and, let's say, human value input, but then also the economies and how it can help, preserve resources and its impact on the environment and carbon. I would like to ask Mr. Nasser, what are your thoughts on the role of technology today in this industry? What is your advice in terms of investing in the right technology versus the cheaper alternative? And how does that help further position recyclers in a global export, or let's say in a global, uniqueness and standpoint?
Can you repeat the question again?
The role of technology and investing in the right technology.
Yeah. Definitely, technology with the continuous development of machinery. Okay, in our industry, we need machineries and hand sorting. Okay, recycling products. What we do, we have to sort it and process it to meet the standards required standards. And machineries. Without machineries, we cannot do the job. Today, with the newest technologies, even introduction of AI. Now AI is being introduced into machineries, how to sort the products, facilitate our job. This is part of the continuous challenges. If we carry the first question on the challenges, because for us, this is continuous investments. We have to keep putting. Unless we do that, we cannot grow and we cannot meet the requirements. And for the region to grow and be an important recycling center, that's what we are expecting in the future. Definitely, we have to invest in such machineries and technology on a continuous basis. Otherwise, we will be kept behind, definitely.
Thank you for your thought. I would like to ask Mr. Ranjit the final question of the panel discussion, perhaps before I turn it back to the crowd. Not sure if any of you have questions to ask the esteemed panelists, but from my side, Mr. Ranjit, what do you see as the future of recycling in the Middle East? Be it actually recycling in the Middle East or the Middle East becoming a hub for the flow of such invaluable materials?
Mariam, I have always viewed Middle East, or rather UAE, as the hub of excellence, hub of innovation, a region where creative ideas are born and successful stories are generated from. In this year of COP28, I am certainly hoping for a lot of innovative work being done this year, and I'm going to call it the year of delivery action, as the previous COPs have been more about rhetoric and populism, but I see this COP28 to be a year when deliveries will really be made real. As my friend Salman Abdullah very correctly announced, some of the thoughts that will come out of COP28. We need action plans, not rhetoricism. How I see what will happen in this decade in this region, I see we'll be adopting a lot of artificial intelligence solutions we'll be bringing to the recycling industry. We'll be able to use more robotic solutions. We'll be able to see more advanced optical cameras, helping to create better sorting, better baling, making sure the quality criteria of the word is met. We'll also see digital transformation in the way the way global trade is done. It's time we develop artificial intelligence to be able to create and build a green audit trail. So my friend Salman Abdullah and my colleague who are using so much of the raw material, that they get the right quality of raw material so their production time, they get better efficiency out of their production cycles. I see more advanced use of blockchain to help improve the payment systems of this business. But I'm saying by 2050, 25 trillion will be the value of global trade. Imagine how much money the financial institutions are going to make, the letters of credit, the SWIFT payment systems. And I think this is the region. I mean, you probably may not know, but UAE is the first country in the world to have adopted an artificial intelligence minister. So I think this is where I believe we will also see transformation of trade. We will see the instruments used to settle our payment system globally will change. So I certainly see a lot of changes coming up here. And I would like to really add the words of His Excellency Dr. Sultan Al Jaber, who is the president of COP28, who said, as a nation at the crossroads of the globe, UAE is well positioned to build bridges, foster consensus, and bring the world together in one shared mission to keep 1.5 degrees alive and protect the planet for the generations who will follow us. I'm certainly sure His Excellency will play a very important role in delivering sustainable development across key industrial areas, including recycling, helping promote economic growth using technology as a key driver. So I see growth of public-private partnership moving ahead in UAE and becoming the global center for futuristic industries. So I see recycling growing very rapidly in the next decade.
Inshallah. Thank you so much, Mr. Anjit, for that closing statement. We're very grateful for having leadership figures that act as a beacon of hope always. I can say this both as an Emirati, but I'm sure many of you in the room that live here and see the UAE as your second home would agree to that fact. So I'm not aware of time. I really hope we didn't go over time. And I hope we, spiked some interest in the audience. I would like to pass over this opportunity to see if anyone has questions for the esteemed panelists. Yes?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Anshul Gupta from PGI Group. So my question would be to Mr. Salman. As you mentioned about the new regulations of NDC coming up, so we were a little bit interested in knowing about I heard that carbon footprint exchange or carbon credit exchange is going to be launched in UAE very soon. I was fortunate enough to attend one of the meetings of Her Excellency, Minister of Climate Change, and she mentioned this. Do you have any insight when it is going to be launched and how active it would be for us?
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, we need to understand what is it carbon credits and what are some of the negative connotations over the years. It's a very clunky process of carbon credits. So the new terminology is ITMOs, which is internationally transferable mitigation options. Okay, so this legislation will be part of the declaration, and you will be able to see, according to Article 6, how UAE is interpreting that and making it the law in this part of the world. So it is coming, but again, you have to think about that carbon credits or offsets which you are doing in your industry, you cannot do more than certain percentage according to science-based targets. So for example, if you allow people to infinitely buy carbon credits, the one with the biggest checkbook will buy it all, and they are carbon-free. It doesn't work like that. So the offset mechanism should be the last mile for any industry. So for example, in aluminum, we have to definitely do up to 90% and more real reduction. And only the last mile, maybe we can do offsets. So it's a very interesting instrument, but this is a discussion we will have, or some of us will have in 1945 or 2045, not now. Now we have to really, really, really reduce the emissions.
Yes.
And the 12% I said is a combined industry. Some will have bigger targets, some will have smaller targets. I hope that addresses.
Salman, in our industry as recyclers, when we recycle the products, the scrap, I think, and we give you we supply you with our material that you will use it to reduce your carbon, which means we are producing, and we are the first industry that basically have zero carbon footprint, maybe, for example.
That's a big misconception. I apologize. I'm really threatening my
Yeah,
next
I
year's
want
invitation.
you want to
It
more
is a
information on that. That's why I
it's a
brought
huge
it.
misconception. First of all, if you will take pre-consumer scrap, the pre-consumer scrap means the carbon burden is still there. So when you recycle it, you're actually increasing its carbon footprint. So for example, it was 3 tons per ton, the original product. You make something out of it, you make a wheel, and there is some scrap left over. This is pre-consumer, it's not reach consumer. So it's still got the carbon footprint, then you remelt it, it's higher than the primary aluminum. And then, which fuel are you using? You know, are you using clean energy? Are you using gas-fired, coal-fired, heavy oil? So that's my point as a homework. Do we even know what is the carbon footprint of the recycling in the Middle East? And my suspicion is that we don't know, because I've asked this question and people don't know what is the carbon footprint. And you need to know where your product is coming from. The most important one, which will save the landfill, is the post-consumer, not pre-consumer scrap.
Definitely, we need to be educated on that.
No, for sure. I just want to give Mr. Salam the last.
Yeah, Dr. Salam Sharif, the patron of BMR and chairman for Sharif Metals Group. Question again to Dr. Salman Abdullah. I think we are putting a lot of questions on your side of how interesting aluminum is. Now, we do appreciate the aluminum stewardship program that you have illustrated in the past 2 years, and we were part of those attendees to the program. I understand that your billets that you produce from the primary had been under the obligation of containing some recycled metals up to a certain extent to call it green billets. Now, question is, to how much of recycled metals need to be embedded into your billets to be called green, and what is your top-notch level of recycled materials, and how that may bode on the recycling industry in the UAE? Thank you.
Again, it's not recycled metal, it's a responsible recycled metal, which is completely different. It chemically looks exactly the same, the 2 ingots look the same, but you need to have the full traceability. So if you don't have the full traceability, it may be recycled, we will not touch it with a barge pole. We will run away from it because we know nothing about it. We don't know where it is sourced, was child labor used into it, were the contractors in a good nick, so you have to be really certified. So that's the first part. It's not that just take the metal and mix it. The second part is why we use it is to reduce the carbon footprint. So it needs to come with a full nutritional label. You know, like when you cook at home, you look at different products which you are making in your dish. You need to know what is a nutritional label of your ingredients. Otherwise, you will not know what the final product has. Now, what is a percentage? It all depends on customer requirements. And yes, customers are asking for more and more, and we are sourcing our metal from responsible people only.
I'm referring to those suppliers who meet the criteria within the specs and the corporate and social responsibilities, which I understand your regulations. We've been part of the program. So wouldn't that be something of an eye-opener for recycling industry, which meets your criteria in the near few years?
It's an aluminum stewardship initiative. It's for recyclers as well. You have to take the time and approach them. They're very approachable. And I've been saying this for years now, if you need any help, we can do the connection. Not one person has contacted me that I want to talk to ASI. Not one. So, I mean, you go to ASI, Aluminum Stewardship Initiative, type it on Google, it will pop up, write them an email, and they will come back and tell you to become a member. They will tell you everything. All the requirements are there on the web for last 10 years. So it's all out there, guys, but we need to get into the pulling mode. And if you get the certification, we'll just come and buy your metal, no questions asked. So this is the reason we are in the value chain of niche household names like Mercedes, Tesla, BMW. Our metal is getting in there because we have this certificate. We shout about it, and there's no further questions.
Great. With that, no, one final question from Mr.
Sure. Emmanuel Katrak is from the European Recycling Industry Confederation. One question out of curiosity, is there any recyclers, organization or company in that stewardship? Or we have not done our home job?
There are many from Europe, many.
Okay.
Many. But I am not aware of anyone from the Middle East.
So 2 homeworks from Mr. Salman for all of us today, calculating our 2019 footprint as a baseline, and then last but not least, checking out ASI. Thank you so much. I don't want to take more time from the schedule set today. Thank you to our esteemed panelists. It was a pleasure and an honor, and thank you for the crowd for listening.
Gentlemen, I would appreciate you sitting over here. The next panel is a very, very interesting panel, and all the heads of associations worldwide is going to be sitting on the dais. It's deglobalization, a threat or an opportunity for all the recyclers. So I would appreciate if you all can be seated. We continue, and that's the last program for today. And also, I would like to mention that without these sponsors, this will never be a big success for us. And we would like to thank our major sponsor, Al Qaryan Group, to be sitting over here. And they are the major sponsors for tonight and for the whole conference day. So thank you, sponsor Al Qaryan, to be associated with BMR all the time. I would like the next panelists to be ready to be called on the stage.
So, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, without taking too much of time, let me begin with the second session. I'm really privileged to be moderating this session on a very interesting subject, deglobalization. Everyone is talking about it, and we are going to discuss whether deglobalization is actually a threat or an opportunity for the recycling industry. While some of us may think that deglobalization is clearly a trade barrier or maybe a protectionist approach by respective governments, there could be some who may see it as an opportunity. Let's listen to some of the industry experts on the subject. And before I call all of them here, I'll introduce one by one and then let them come on the stage. I begin with none other than Ms. Susie Burraj. Susie. As a fourth-generation recycler, she actually grew up learning the concept of recycling from her father and grandfather. She is the managing director of Recycled Products Limited since 2001. She has since grown much bigger in stature through sheer determination and dedication. Susie holds several distinguished positions and has the distinction of having several firsts under her belt. To begin with, she is the first female to be the president of the prestigious BIR. Before becoming the first female president of BIR, she was the first female president of BMRA, which is British Metal Recycling Association. She is also the president of the European Metal Trade and Recycling branch of EURIC and the vice president of Global Recycling Foundation, perhaps the first female to be so. But most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, Susie is BMR's patron, and she has been always a big support to BMR. Her introduction won't be complete without the mention of the most coveted award she has received earlier this year. She is the recipient of OBE. For you all, OBE stands for the Officer of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, which is an extraordinary acknowledgement of her noteworthy contribution to the betterment of environment and recycling industry. Perhaps the first one from the recycling industry to receive this award. Susie, we are really proud of you. We can go on and on, but I think that's enough for today as the introduction. So let me introduce our next panelist, Emmanuel Katrikis. Have I pronounced your surname properly? For you, ladies and gentlemen, Emmanuel joined EURIC, which is the European Recycling Industries Confederation, in 2014 since its inception, and has been the most trusted interface between the recycling industry and European institutions. He is a law graduate from College of Europe in Burgess. Before joining EURIC, he has worked in international law firms and with 2 trade associations, giving him the in-depth experience of association management. Over the past 10 years, he has gained very strong knowledge of European affairs and advocacy with a proven track record in defending various industrial sectors. Emmanuel is a regular speaker in international conferences about recycling and the member of several expert groups set up by European institutions aiming at supporting the transition towards circular economy. Emmanuel. Our next panelist is none other than Sanjay Bhai Mehta. Please, Sanjay. He is the president of MRAI, the Materials Recycling Association of India. He heads the MTC Group, which is a multinational and multidimensional business employing over 4,000 people. The group has wide-ranging interests in trading of ferrous and non-ferrous metal scraps and ferroalloys, manufacturing of steel semis, manufacturing of copper tubes, e-waste recycling, ELV dismantling and shredding, plant dismantling and demolition, automobile sales, etc., etc., etc. Sanjay has a proven track record of a successful administrator, and we all know that through his initiatives and vision, MRAI has grown into be an internationally recognized recyclers body. He has been also a very, very big supporter of BMR, and we thank you for that. Our last panelist for the session is none other than Dr. Salam Sharif, a friend, a well-wisher, a guide. Not sure really whether Salam needs an introduction, but for the sake of records, I have to say something. So, Salam Sharif comes from a family who are one of the pioneers in the Middle East recycling industry. His desire to acquire knowledge did not end with his civil engineering and metallurgical engineering degree that he secured way back in 1984. He then followed it up with an MBA from Cambridge, Massachusetts, and has marched on to get a doctorate in business administration and complete strategic management from London. Congratulations. I'm not sure if there is a double doctorate, and if you have any plans for that. In a nutshell, Dr. Salam Sharif is an institution. He has held progressive positions at BIR, and he was one of the key promoters of BMR and the first president of BMR, a position that he held for 10 years before being elevated for the next 3 years to the position of honorary chairman. And he continues to be a guide to BMR in the capacity of a patron. Dr. Salam is a regular speaker in local and international forums and conferences related to recycling, environment, energy, and sustainability. Now, let's begin with the Q&A. So let me begin with Susie. The first question is direct. Do you observe a trend of deglobalization at BIR? And how could that affect the recycling industry in your opinion?
Thank you, and let me start by saying thank you all for having me here today. I really appreciate the reception I've received from you all, especially now in my new position as BIR President, and I thank you all most sincerely for all your support. Of course, there's a noticeable trend of deglobalization, which is evident due to the shifting geopolitical landscape. This trend raises concerns for recycling industry because recycling materials are heavily reliant on global trade. While the recycling industry can certainly expand in specific regions, it is crucial to maintain a free flow of materials across borders to sustain the industry's growth and effectiveness.
Let me continue with another question to you. What do you think about the increasing trade barriers that the deglobalization is bringing?
Obviously, it's going to be a significant challenge for our industry. BIR is actively addressing these in various fora and has consistently campaigned for the free movement of secondary raw materials to avoid shortages in political and geographical areas and surplusing in others. Trade barriers could indeed limit supply to manufacturing industries in some countries. It could lead to lower recycling rates and a drop-off in investment, which would harm not only the interest of the respective commodity sectors, but also for the environment.
Let me go to Emmanuel. So, based on your involvement in the various forums and discussions with the environmentalists in EU and Basel, can you kind of elaborate on the rules and regulations? Do we have adequate rules and regulations in place to kind of regulate the recycling industry? You can first talk in terms of EU, and then maybe we can see how it is applied to the rest of them.
So again, I also would like to extend my deepest thanks to BMR for having me today. It's a great pleasure to be there a second year in a row, and congratulations to BMR for such a stunning conference. It's a difficult question, actually, because in the EU there are rules that are regulating waste management and recycling for now almost 30, 40 years. It's just that those rules are evolving extremely rapidly, and more regulation is not always, the best solution that you need to basically boost recycling. Just going to explain myself a bit. In waste management and recycling, you have different materials, and those materials might need, obviously, always different kind of regulations. When you discuss about recycling metals, for instance, given the intrinsic value of metals, I'm not going to say that you don't need regulation. That's not the case. But you need less regulation, because base metals have such a value that even if you don't have any regulation, they are not going to end up in a landfill. Obviously, when you speak about waste management for household waste, plastic waste, all those kind of things, without any regulation, you will very likely end up in a suboptimal kind of result. And that's actually what was said before. Aluminum cans. Aluminum has a high value. Aluminum cans are dozens, thousands of aluminum cans. So here you need obviously to have rules for proper collection to make sure that people are going to put their aluminum cans not in the mixed waste bin, but in the right bin, and increase basically collection rates that are absolutely needed to be able to recycle. And so I think where Europe has been relatively good at doing is to have very specific kind of legislations for different waste streams. Now, in Europe, we end up in a situation where policymakers do understand that recycling is overly important to de-risk supply chains. Contrary to other parts of the world, we don't mind much anymore in Europe. And this is where we start having big problems, because we start putting everything in the same bin and have one-size-fits-all kind of legislation. For instance, on waste shipments, you may say waste shipment need additional rules for mixed plastics waste, for instance, not so much for base metals, at least because here, as I say, they are not going to end up in a landfill no matter what. The other thing that starts challenging a lot recyclers in Europe, and is coming also in other parts of the world, is extended producer responsibility schemes, and how basically you share responsibility between different actors across the value chain, but also how you share the ownership of the materials that you recycle. And as recyclers, what we want is to keep the ownership of the material. We cannot lose that. That's the added values that Suzy's company is creating, that Sanjay's company is creating in the UK or in India. So I'm going to stop here just to open two different fronts.
So the reason I asked you about the rules and regulations is because I think we all know that the recycling industry kind of, started and became more and more widespread in Europe. And BIR and URIC, being the representative bodies for the recyclers, have influenced the rules and regulations that were drafted, maybe in Basel. And the world is following Basel today to kind of either accept or reject the kind of scrap that can be traded cross-border. Is there any initiative to kind of make this regulation more widespread, not as an imposition, but to make the trade more simpler for the world?
I will start and then I will pass on the hot potato to Susie, I suppose. No, I'm going to say two things before answering the question. The EU, since its very inception, was ontologically a region that was supporting free and fair trade because of the history of Europe and because of the fact that there is that understanding, the more you trade, the less chances you have to have wars, with other partners. And that kind of thinking kind of collapsed with COVID and what happens today in Ukraine, the decision made by Russia to attack Ukraine. And here we end up in a situation where policymakers at top level within the EU do not see free and fair trade as the alpha and the omega of policymaking anymore. And adding to what I said before, that there is a growing trend in the EU to be afraid that there won't be sufficient materials, then policymakers react instantly by saying we need to restrict trade. And this is where we don't necessarily agree with them, to be frank. Going to take a very practical example. We import most of our critical raw materials that are needed for the digital and the green transition, so what is called the twin transition by policymakers. And we may conceive that here you need some regulation of trade for extremely specific kind of materials, which are not occurring or being mined in a widespread manner across the globe. But what we see is that our customers, so the customers of the recycling industry in Europe, now try to get in those lists because they want to restrict trade. Why? Because by 2030, the objective at EU level for now 3 years is to cut CO2 emissions by 55% in comparison to 1990. So imagine for aluminum smelters, steel mills, the amount of pressure. What we say as recyclers is that we will support you, but what you need to do is to make sure that the CO2 savings that we bring as recyclers is properly rewarded, and understand that it's not because you are going to put trade barriers that we are going to recycle more. It might be counterintuitive, but the more trade barriers we end up for metals, the less recycling will happen. Because here, to have the best allocation, you need a free market. And this is why we have always, as Zurich, had a differentiated approach, whether we speak about plastics, for which you need additional support, otherwise it's not going to happen naturally, versus base metals, for which the best way to allocate is to have international standards and don't cut global trade.
Yeah. So yeah, it's basically to do with creating some standards which I think should be made known internationally, and we should try and get those standards accepted. So I think one good thing that globalization did over the last several years was bringing about some standardization in the way the management things should be managed. Standardization in terms of quality of the scrap that even Mariam said. There is a difference in what a scrap is called in one territory and what a scrap is called in another territory. In that respect, I think we have to thank ISRI for bringing about the standardization many years ago. But so let me come to Salam. In terms of the standardization, how do you think? I mean, because you're from the engineering background, how do you think the technology plays a role in bringing about the standardization which can be kind of imposed on the industries, and that can address the threat coming out of deglobalization?
I think technology has always been a plus point and a tool that we have been blessed with to get our industry means and day-to-day life going in a more sophisticated and energetic and circularity way of mankind. Now, of course, now the good old days when we had the personal expertise of someone who goes and recognizes the material by torching or grinding. I think it was the basic school which we needed to have it as a basic information, but of course that was not sustainable. So with the machineries technologies of bringing a lot of the assortment machines and the smart equipment, so balers to shredders to granulators, you name it. At one stage, it was also adding a lot of value to move the piles of stock of metals around, or even what they call waste, whether it's paper or plastic. But we went into a technology to an extent where we could never have imagined that the algorithm would be embedded into machines through either the IoT or AI, and they become really sorting on their own thousands of tons much faster than what a mankind can do. So definitely it's been a plus point to the production and increasing the revenue and moving the end-of-life material to bring it back into the production line once again. On the other hand, every coin has a reverse. That has also its toll on the employment level. It has replaced a lot of man hours and employment, which used to, like in one of those industries, at one stage we used to hire 500 employees in our yards of running full ferrous and non-ferrous operations. Then when we improved and we got those technologies, and we realized that we don't need more than even 100 laborers altogether. That has, on one hand, benefited the stakeholder and the investor, but it has also added to the unemployment level. Imagine that we used to call special mechanics to fix our machine to get it working, and now from Germany, they fix it on the remote control from their office into our PLC software. It works just fine and remotely controlled. So definitely it has added a lot of value, and I think without technology, we wouldn't be able to cope anymore in this business.
Let me come to you, Sanjay. And you represent an industry which is considered to be one of the most vibrant in the world today. Everyone is looking at India to be the potential customer for practically everything. And India is perhaps the most hungry of all. Whether it is raw material, technology, anything. In your opinion, what needs to be done to ensure that the recycling industry in India is protected and remains sustainable in a world which is experiencing deglobalization?
Thank you very much, BMR, President Mir Mustafa, and entire board members for inviting MRI on this wonderful conference. Thank you very much, Sanjeev, for inviting me on these panel discussions. As we all know that India is definitely growing rapidly fast at the speed of more than 8% GDP per annum. And thanks to our bureaucrats and the last government, the present government of last 10 years, and we have seen number of policies, measures, reforms, everything in all the sectors, and because of that, and country has progressed very fast And we have seen the kind of progress we have achieved in 70 years and the kind of progress we have achieved in 10 years that I think in my opinion, next 20 years is definitely going to be India's years. And in every front, India is growing. Let me take back to you our scrap arising in terms of the ferrous scrap and non-ferrous scrap. Our ferrous scrap arising, what we studied as MRAI with the Steel Ministry and Joint Plant Committee in 2016 was 24 million tons. In 2023, that is what scrap arising in India. And just now it has been published, it is about 28.5 million tons. And the growth is going by at least 1 year, about 1 million tons per annum. It's increasing, arising of the scrap in India as well. But definitely consumption is increasing much more faster than the arising. And what our government has asked us to prepare the data for 2047, it's assuming that India is definitely needed, it's going to need more scrap. And as on today, because of the higher steel productions and everything, last year we completed more than 10 million tons of imports. Before that, it was hardly 6 million tons. In 2021, 2022, we completed 10 million tons. This year, we are going to complete maybe 12 million tons. By 2030, we will definitely require maybe 25 million tons from the world over markets. So India is definitely surpassed Turkey demands. And today also, we are second largest, biggest importer in the world. In containerized, we are the first largest importer in the world. And quantity-wise, definitely we are the second largest. And I presume in next 4 to 5 years, we are going to be the leader in scrap importing country in the world. So definitely, we are going to consume more scrap. Yes, there are few challenges. There are more, not few challenges, more challenges because of the countries, more and more countries are banning the scrap. Over 50 countries have banned the scrap, and including European Union, CBAM, everything is taking place. So our government is also very much proactive and taking all the steps, and we are going in technological advancement also. We have a large surplus of iron ore in India. So as on today, our iron ore consumption in secondary steel is about 20%. That is going to increase by, say, 30%, 35% in times to come, looking into the scrap less availability. So somehow I believe that we will be able to manage. The challenges are huge, but we'll be able to manage looking into the global leader in the world of scrap buying.
My next question to you is, since MRAI has been more or less recognized a representative body of the recyclers, even by government of India, and you are very, very closely working with the concerned ministries, is there any discussion or is there anything that is coming up to satisfy the OECD norms? Because EU is going to allow exports of scrap only to OECD. And India being such a large importer of scrap, is there any drive, is there any initiative to get to that level?
Yes, we have approached to the government in last 6 months of time. There were several meetings have been held with the Indian government and MRAI, and they have already started approaching the European Union on OECD rules and norms and everything. I believe, Sanjeev, that what scrap quantum we are going to consume, definitely it is going to play a big role also looking into the world over scrap market, and India is going to drive the economy in next 4 or 5 years of time. And I believe that some kind of relaxations will come, some kind of OECD, and our government is definitely very proactive. Our Prime Minister is very much proactive, government is very much proactive, and world will definitely do something to satisfy Indian appetite and the demands. I don't believe that India is going to buy, example, $400 per ton at ferrous scrap, and Turkey will buy at $300. No, that can't be happen. That won't happen. So definitely looking into the prices of Indian buyers will get the material by somehow, whether it's relaxation in OECD norms, whether it's OECD companies in terms of the countries may come, that there will be a OECD for following norms, might be companies will be notified, maybe 500 units, 400 units. So those companies will get the material, some kind of things will happen. And government is also proactive. I think so some kind of balance will come. Technological advancement, scrap demand, global economy, everything is going to take place at the time when it is required.
I bring the same question in a little different way to Emmanuel. The OECD, I mean, the exports allowed to OECD, countries who are not in OECD, can they adopt certain norms that are set by EU to be eligible to get the scrap?
Yes. So that very much refers to the ongoing revision that is going to be very likely finalized within the next 2 to 3 months of the waste shipment regulation. Once it's finalized, it will take another 2 to 3 months to have a final text, and then there are transition periods, especially for exports, which vary between 2 to 5 years. It depends of which final text is going to be adopted. It's not for green listed waste because you are not in an OECD country that the trade is banned. It's just that there is an additional layer of obligation. The first one is common to OECD and non-OECD countries. It is to carry out an audit of the receiving facility. So it means that, in theory, facilities, whether they are based in Turkey or India, will have to be audited against standards, which, again, I speak about what is in the text today, will have to prove that the standards for the production and the use of scrap are equivalent to the one in the EU, okay? It's not we as Zurich, it's really what the EU has proposed. We deflected the big push from some energy-intensive industries in Europe, not to name the steel industry, to have a flat ban. So this is likely not going to happen. But on the other hand, for non-OECD countries, there will also be an obligation, which is a state-to-state obligation, that the government of India notifies, not a notification, but prove through documental proof to the EU that they have an environmental policy, waste management policy that is equivalent to what happens. We can criticize that. It's not what Zurich advocated for, because, again, what I say, what it was, we could think it makes sense for mixed plastics, because you don't want that to be landfilled. For base metals, the needs are completely different and they are not actually justified. So those are likely to be the rules for the future. Now, one thing which we didn't discuss, which was absolutely essential, is that the problem we have in Europe and the problem that we have at a global level is that we consider our output as a waste. And this is why, for instance, that there is no understanding why plastic flakes, which have been processed to a high degree of quality, or scrap metal, which is meeting quality standards that are well defined, well accepted, shall be classified as a waste. And what I see, whether it's Europe and beyond Europe, is, or my advice is, and this is not only related to waste shipment, is that we should stop being regulated as a waste. So whatever comes out of our plants shall legally be considered as a raw material, a recycled material, with another status. So I'm not going to speak about international things. In European level, there are criteria to be end of waste. I guess they will be increasingly important. And we see that they are also increasingly important for the domestic industry. The car industry today is requiring to the steel, to the aluminum smelters, to have extremely high quality with very low carbon footprint, which can only be achieved by or through use of recycled materials, which means that now the smelters and the steel mills are asking us for higher quality, which means that what we are going to provide today in the future will be of a higher quality and shall no longer be legally considered as a waste.
Susie, let me come back to you with a question on decarbonization. So do you think decarbonization is the agenda that is driving deglobalization? Is it really the environment and the concern for environment, or it is sheer commerce?
Definitely, decarbonisation is a significant driver for this trend for regionalisation. There's also the need or the want to retain critical raw materials within borders. That's another reason, I believe, why regionalisation is happening, especially as Emmanuel alluded to, with tensions that have happened within Ukraine and Russia. Within Europe particularly, they are very keen now to make sure they have ample critical raw materials within their own borders. At BIR, we're very aware that decarbonisation is critical, and as we heard from the panel earlier, that the consumers are going to be ever more demanding that our materials have a low carbon footprint. So previously, BIR have produced the environmental benefits of recycling, a publication. It was quite limited. The last one in 2016 only covered three metals. So as part of a new initiative now, we've secured significant funds from within BIR, and we're going to be producing a new document, the environmental benefits of recycling, and we are going to be looking from our gates so that we can be compared on a level field with primary producers.
Salam, sorry. Again, talking about technology, this is going to be a question again to Emmanuel and to Salam. You can reply one by one. There are scraps which are straight, easy to use, easy to define, and easy to handle. But I think the percentage of this kind of scrap is really very, very small. A lot of scrap that gets generated and that's getting traded today is a little complicated to define in absolute, standard terms. What innovative practices and initiatives do you recommend to be taken by the industry, not only to address the deglobalization restrictions, but even otherwise?
See, I've been thinking about the entire topic we have for today, which is the threats and the opportunities from globalization to deglobalization and impact on the recycling industry, which we are all here for. And I'm just thinking out of the box a little bit. I don't think we should worry about the recycling. I think recycling will take care of itself. Recycling is an existential and eternal phenomenon. And this is something that the Mother Nature has, even before mankind landed on this earth, before the earth has hosted mankind, it is in an equilibrium and perfect circularity. Okay, the air we breathe today is an oxygen, which is a byproduct of the plants, which they are, in fact, taking in the carbon dioxide, which we emit, and they generate the oxygen. We take the oxygen and we give them back the carbon dioxide, and this is how we are surviving. I'm only worried about our grandchildren, because the disturbance which has been through the deglobalization or globalization, I think it's just an economic model Whether I call it capitalist or I call it socialism, it is their own country's way of running their business. If the capitalism suits the North American side, may not suit somebody else's who's adopting the socialism, that's perfectly okay. Now, these are all vehicles which were made by the decision makers. If I talk about the Middle East, which is the region why we're here in the BMR, now the Middle East has a major commodity which is the contributing to the major of the GDP growth and revenue of the region, having been sitting on 50% of the hydrocarbon reserved of commodities as a source for the energy for the rest of the world, definitely had to benefit from the globalization, which needs to supply that energy into places which they are in deficit of. And with the generation of that revenue from the petrodollars, we have a lot of the developments of the infrastructure and what we have seen here becoming in the most populous city in the world, which is Dubai. Now, the byproduct of that is that when that has gone for quite some time, if some other country has more resources of human capital, they are populated with over 1 billion, that is their main capital resource. They would like to have it under the globalization, maybe shared with other continents which lack the manpower resources. Some have crops, some have the lack of it. Now, over the years, when there was a transformation from the needing the raw material and they have been under pressure of the environmental impact of the pollution that we created, and we often use the word we want to protect the environment. In fact, we don't need to protect the environment. We need to behave with the environment. If we are just minding what we do, the environment will take care of itself. So if we always focus on what is our role to do in terms of either hoarding the raw materials, which is not something we would like to have. They had it initially in the post the industrial age, post the World War I, and then they had to interact with the rest of the world by introducing the globalization and it was regularized under the WTO, where the Basel Convention, back to the specs, which were introduced in the 89 and then 92 was signatories. The restrictions were only to try to control the movement of the raw material. When it was in a proper balance which suited the stakeholders, they realized maybe that this is backfiring at one stage, that their precious raw materials, which was the backbone for the industry, has started getting offshore into China or India or elsewhere. They started feeling the scarcity. Now, restricting those movements through the Basel Convention, which I know Yurik is doing a great job, and BIR on top of it as the leader worldwide to lobby for this. It is getting roadblocks regardless of what avenues we approach, because I sense the fact that they're aware of how important those raw materials are for their industry and for their sustainability, but they do want to possess it within their borders. Now, how to get over this? It's a question of dealing with the deglobalization, in the sense that if you can't beat them, join them. It will bring some important opportunities back home, because if simply they block certain metals going out of your borders, you might as well recycle it at home and make the best out of it for the industry revolution and building up that raw material, which is substituting the mining and the primary industry. And with that, we continue to work within until some laws are passed in Europe to bring it back into a normal free and full free trade.
So yeah, so this brings me to Emmanuel. While EU is talking about restricting exports of scrap, what in your opinion, are they ready to be able to treat the scrap, the volume of scrap they are generating. And one thing is the lobby of environmentalists talking about restricting exports of the waste or scrap. And another is the ability of the governments or the countries in EU to be able to treat that.
So again, there are two main reasons for those looming export restrictions. One is a reaction from all the industrial players who, because of the enormous pressure they have to decarbonize, want to get a competitive edge by restricting exports and thus hoping that recycled materials will get cheaper. I think there is an economical mistake made because, as I said, if today we recycle metals up to a certain level in terms of quantity and quality, it's because there is an unhampered market. Just a number, when it comes to steel scrap, 80% of recycled steel stays in Europe and 20% is being exported. So we don't speak about massive amounts in absolute terms of those exports. But those 20%, which are structurally there for more than a decade, is what enables the industry to benefit from a price which is basically the result of a free and fair trade, so basically a global supply and a global demand, and thus have a price which at the end of the day is going to reward the work that the recycling industry has been doing. Because again, today there are no mechanisms which are going to reward recyclers for the CO2 savings they bring. When you recycle steel, you save more or less 59, 60%, depending on different parameters of CO2. We don't get a discount for those 59 or 60%, whether it's the case in Europe or globally speaking. And the point number two is indeed what we saw over the last 5 years, COVID and geopolitical changes, which have basically taken some edge in policy shaping and which basically are pushing policymakers to say that since recycling is a way to de-risk supply chains, we need to have better trade control, which again we disagree. I'm not going to repeat it again. So, you know, all in all, the second question was whether we are ready, you know, to absorb what is not being traded today. There is one key change today in EU legislation are what we call recycled content targets. So there are, at least for plastics today, obligations for the producers to incorporate recycled material, something that we very much support. You don't have that for metals, except for batteries, okay? But for base metal, that today is not the case. And we were very straightforward to the EU. We said, either basically you keep us having a free access to international markets, or before you impose export restrictions, we need to have minimum targets in terms of recycled content, which is not the case up until now. So I don't think anyone is ready. The only good thing, and I just want to echo what Salam has said, as an industry we are intrinsically flexible, so we are used, you know, to changing market conditions. But again, I don't think that from one day to another, changing completely the rules of the game, and that might be potentially the case, is going to lead to the desired effect. Because even if scrap consumption may increase in the years to come, what we see today in Europe is that there is not more scrap consumption, simply because the industries are transitioning, and in terms of absolute demand, that's not the case. So I don't have a crystal ball, but I hope that as an industry we react, and I also hope that we are going to be able to be better at marketing the fact that what we recycle shall not be labeled as a waste anymore. It's not only to ease waste shipments, it's just as a matter of credibility.
Let me come to Sanjay. We have been seeing a lot of trade agreements being signed, either country to country or regionally. How do you see that as a threat or an opportunity vis-a-vis deglobalization and the movement of scrap vis-a-vis the SEMIs, which enjoy the duty benefits?
I think so, Sanjeev. We did not participated in RCEP agreement, and we moved out 1 year back from RCEP, and that was the biggest trade agreement signed in last 4 or 5 years of time between the 16 countries. And because of our own issues, because of our own preferences and our own good consumption, we thought that our government thought that it is not required for the country to feed the international, I'm going to say, primary material to India. It's not. I'm not talking about only for metals, but for various items. So we did not sign the agreements. So now our government is signing, moving forward with the country-to-country agreements with UK, with UAE, with Australia, with New Zealand, wherever we think that we are comfortable. On whatever the items we are comfortable, we are signing the agreements. And I believe that scrap is not going to be more benefited in terms of the such kind of FTA or trade agreements. Primary side, finished side, it is going to be benefited to our country, and our exports is going to be increased with that. But again, I believe that our own consumption is getting much better and better every year. So our government has thought in that, I'm to say, area, and that's why we did not participate in RCEP. And definitely such kind of trade agreements are required for the betterment of the country and the exports. So, and those are going to be work very well, I think. Whatever the policies are running as on today, and whatever measures have been taken in India is quite well and satisfied with the business communities and industries. So I'm fine with that, definitely.
Before we end this, Salam, I have a special question for you. I think most of the people here of our age, or 10 years plus minus, have generally excuse me. So we have generally been through the globalization drive world over. And now the younger generation who are now joining the recycling industry or have just joined, with the deglobalization, you have any special message for the youngsters?
I think it's very good and interesting question in the sense that globalization has really spoiled a lot of generations, I can say. Because if we look into what kind of luxury life we've been enjoying in Dubai, considering, not at my age, we talk about our age, I think in the early 80s when I graduated, and I had even right before that, I had to work in the backyard of my dad to earn the pocket money of my school expense. And now we had learned it from ground up, and back then it was difficult time. But right now, if you tell your kid go and earn your money right from the backyard, he will just tell you what he reads on the internet and how that could be labor child, and he'll give you a lecture. So you have to really mind how to behave with your own kids. So it has its own toll, I would say, and it is a double-edged sword. No doubt that the globalization has been freeing out the movement of commodities, which is the proper balanced equilibrium amongst the globe, which has worked maybe for 30 years or so, and then thereafter, after reaching a certain growth and at a stage when each borderline started generating their own end-of-life material as which they used to consider it, I mean, in layman terms, they used to call it someone's trash, it's someone else's treasure. Now they realize that there is nothing called trash. That what they used to call trash, it is a treasure indeed. So they started putting the boundaries within their own countries just to keep it whether, and we know it is raw material and backbone of the industry. Now, how to deal with it? Of course, now we have been through the difficult times of the COVID-19, and we've realized with the skyrocketing logistics and freight movements, when the microchips and semiconductors, which were possessed in Taiwan, producing about 50% of the world microchips and semiconductors, if an automobile which is worth maybe $500,000 would be sitting in the industry, not being able to be out on the market because of missing a microchip, it was a wake-up call. Also, with the Ukraine war, we've noticed that a lot of crops were deprived from moving from countries to others. It has really made a real structural transformation in our day-to-day thinking and in ideology, that you do somehow need to look into deglobalization as an opportunity up to a certain extent. I'm not wearing any association cap by saying this, but I'm saying as an individual and a household, as also maybe as a producer of aluminum and lead ingots, I may think, you know what, if I cannot change the wheel, and I'm not in that position to change any decisions of stakeholders or rather decision makers, I might as well just recycle back home. If they ban it, might as well just recycle it, make a vertical integration out of it. And in this region, we've had a lot of industries that they've coming up, and they've changed from being net importers for the raw materials and finished products into rather producers at a very sharp niche, because we're sitting here on a powerhouse which is supplying energy to the rest of the world. Whether it's primary aluminum, whether it's different kind of industries, we realize the energy is forming not less than 30 to 40% of that product component in terms of value. So do it, recycle it at home, educate your children that you have to work and earn for it. From childhood, I have in my house have had the most of my kids learning that pick up your cans, bring them to the backyard, you can triple your pocket money if you do that. And they have done it for some time. So education, we have to take a big part of that. And before I end up my comment, let me just give a very, I would say, a high commencement to commending BMR for what they've been doing, signing a lot of association partnership, which is exchanging the know-how, building bridges with the rest of the world's association. That brings us into such seminars and conferences, which brings young generations in. We've seen here what has been done. The youngsters are taking the moderation and the hosting position. Before they take that role, they are really studying the subject and educating themselves. I'm sure they'll be better leaders than us in the near future. So round of applause for the BMR and for what excellent program they've been doing, and for that great panel I have been part of.
Thank you very much, Salam, and I'm sure if youngsters are here and they have heard you well, it's a good message. So, any questions from the audience? If we have maybe 5 minutes. Yeah.
Hi, again, Anshul Gupta from PGI Group. We're based out of UAE. My question is to Emmanuel and Susie, both of them, whoever can answer it. So we are working with Europe, and we buy a lot of recyclable material from Europe. And the challenge we face is, in some countries it is very easy to export to India or towards Asia. In some countries the regulation is very much different. The customs and the environment laws for export of recyclable material is very different. So why is it so when EU is one organization and you're having one broad law governing the whole territory, why the laws are different? So is it because of this reason you're having a uniform discussion to have a uniform law all over the EU? So can you give us some clarity on this?
You know, the problem is that in Europe you have one law and 27 jurisdictions. And so, before 28 actually. But the point is that, again, the law is the same, and the law will be even more stringently the same, but it's not implemented, even if it's a regulation the same way. And so that we saw a lot. For instance, a very practical example. Germany, environmental enforcement is being spread among the different lenders, so the different regions. So here you end up with having different potential practices between the place where you are. It's the same in Spain, where you have, because of the form that the country has, a lot of delegation at regional level. It's the same in Belgium as well. So despite having the same law, the way it's being implemented varies, and the enforcement varies as well. If you take all the countries, France, but Sweden, or all the countries where you have only one competent authority for shipments, well, then normally you end up more or less with the same outcome. I'm not speaking about the enforcement, I'm speaking about how law is implemented and applied. And that's the very reason. So I believe that there might be more harmonization in the future, not only because the rules will become more strict, but also because what was said by other speakers like Ranjit, for instance, about the fact that more and more waste shipments procedures will be made electronically via digital means. We as Zurich, we pushed a lot for electronic Annex 7, so green list waste shipments, electronic notification procedures, because we believe it increased traceability. Normally, it should also improve business confidentiality, though there are different forces here, others who are asking for obvious reasons more transparency to potentially bypass, some actors in the value chain, but we want to have better traceability and better business confidentiality, and normally that should speed up procedures. But now it's part of the law, but the law is not yet finalized. Normally it's going to be finalized in 2-3 months, and hopefully that digitalization of procedures should also contribute to more harmonization and going faster as well. At least what we hope.
If I may add on the same line here before I lose the thought. Now, we just had the association's meeting yesterday, and I also applaud Mir, the president of BMR, for coming for the theme of one goal, one vision, one language. Now, what we took away out of that is if we have the one language. Now, we know the goal. Okay, we want to have a free and fair trade. We want to have raw material deficit to be supplied by excessive, etc. We know that, and we put also the vision forward now. The language is what we have been stressing on, and this is on the agenda. If the language is getting articulated in a very uniformed way, that becomes the norm. I believe all the different beneficiaries or the importers or exporters would be lined up within similar bylaws. And of course, the key remains to where I think a lot of pressure would be put on you here, Manuel, with the EU, where you have to really try to tweak them, convince them the way you do it. You've been doing a great work with BIR to lobby that, but eventually if they change those specifications, okay, from waste, it's high time they should realize it is raw material and it is backbone for the industry. When that is done, okay, I'm sure all the language would be similar and we would be having to have all these problems out of the line. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay.
One question.
One last question.
Yeah, this is Rajesh Agarwal from RKG International. I have a question to Sanjay Bhai. We all know India is a very growing country and fastest growing economy. As per the record, Steel Producer Association, the per capita consumption of steel in India is still much lower as compared to any European or American or even China. You said that the generation of scrap every year is increasing by 1 million ton. We all know that India is a good producer of sponge iron. We have a lot of sponge iron and we are exporting to Bangladesh as well. Do you think that the demand for scrap will remain same, or there will be sufficient scope for import by Indian steel mills in times to come, knowing fully the fact that the sponge iron is available locally in good percentage. Thank you.
As I said earlier also, sponge we are using at reasonable level. We are using on an average of 20%. On north side, eastern India, like in Kolkata side, we are using 60-70%. Otherwise, across India, it's average 20% of sponge. But due to technological advancement and everything, an ample amount of iron ore is available and scrap shortage, definitely we are going to increase little bit more sponge from 20 to 30, 30 to 40%. And that kind of level will come to definitely to counter the scrap shortage in India. Scrap demand definitely is going to increase year by year. As I said earlier, it was 6 million tons 2 years back. Today we are importing 12 million tons. By 2030, we'll be completing at least 24-25 million tons of import. So that is going on. And the other side, the demand is increasing. The other side, the per capita consumption is also increasing, 77 kg to, now it is increasing very fast level because of the appetite has increased, consumption is increasing in India very fast. We started, I believe, in 2010, when our first MRE was there, we were about 52 kg. Now it's close to 80 kg. So in last 10 years, 12 years of time, we increased by more than 50%. So progressing fast now. Arising is also increasing. We are also importing a lot. We are consuming a lot. So economy, everything is going very well. I think definitely scrap shortage is going to be concerned. Europe is definitely a big question for every one of us. But I believe that some kind of solution, some kind of impact, some kind of positive things will come to definitely for all of us. And recycling is definitely good business. We don't have to worry about everything, our business or anything. You are definitely is going to taken care by Almighty very well. Thank you very much.
One question to the sir here. I'm audible? Yeah.
Okay.
So my question is to the last discussion what we are having with the European Union. So the question is, at the one time, European Union is setting up a norms for CBAM, and at the other side, restricting the export of scrap. So is it a contradicting policy, the first? And what kind of a impact it will have on the scrap premium? Because we have seen, most of the countries going forward for the scrap usage because it is an immediate solution to the low carbon emission. So the question is, what is the impact of the premium on the because of the CBAM? And is it the contradicting policy that EU is adopting? Thanks.
I see Sanjeev being concerned about the duration of the panel. So a very short response, but then we can have a bilateral discussions afterwards. And as a teaser, you must come to BR because I will be speaking about CBAM at BR. So you have to come to the International Environment Committee and there will be more details. But it's completely, those are two different policies. CBAM is linked to European climate policy, so all the policy linked to EU ETS, emission trading system, export restrictions under the waste shipment regulation are very much linked. Again, I'm not speaking for the EU, I'm just explaining what the EU wants to achieve, not that we necessarily agree with, is about ensuring that waste is shipped outside the EU is basically treated in an equivalent condition. And again, I say that very openly when it comes to recycled metals, the concerns are absolutely different, and here it's not the right way forward. Now, having said that, CBAM is, in theory, aiming at making sure that the carbon content of products produced in Europe and the carbon content of products imported from non-European countries which do not have an equivalent carbon credit system are priced equally. So then it comes up with a very, very complex system to determine what is the carbon content of a product imported from India and thus apply a tariff at the import gate. And you have different product entries in CBAM. Scrap is not listed, so scrap is exempt of CBAM, and that's for very obvious reason. Scrap has a low carbon content, so you are not going to put a carbon price on a material which intrinsically is going to save CO2. And so scrap is not included in CBAM. And I'll stop here because otherwise we can discuss that during the coffee break. Okay?
So this brings us to the conclusion of this session. And before the panelists leave the stage, may I request Mr. Garyan to come and honor our guest. It's a real honor to have you here. Mr. Garyan has been one of the biggest supporters of BMR in every respect. And okay, can I request other board members also to join? Yeah, okay.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, I am interfering over here with Sanjay Bhai taking the plug. 1 second. With Sanjay Bhai taking the plug, I just want a real appreciation, round of applause for him, because I know he's going under a very tough situation, and only on the request of BMR, he landed today, and we bless him. Whatever problems, he comes out very fast. Thank you, Sanjay Bhai, on behalf of BMR. We are grateful to you.
I would like to thank everybody here, especially the person here standing with me, Mr. Mohammed Al-Karyan. He's one of our Al-Karyan group, and individually and his group as well. He's one of our top sponsors all the years behind and future as well. And especially in this event, he came specially to join us. And I know his schedule very tight, and we would like to call for Mr. Hamoud and Mr. Abdul Aziz from Al Garyan. Mr. Hamoud. MashaAllah. Yeah.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, it's a wonderful stage over here. As you all can see, it's a ship of Al Garyan which he's asked all of us to board on. Abu Sultan, this is Al Garyan ship stage, and you have asked all the members to board with you. We are happy to be with you.
No. You can call. Oh, okay. It's really interesting to have this big family gathering here as a board, and the most supporters to BMR, whether it is a sponsor or delegates or visitors, dignitaries, members, exhibitors, all the people. Mr. Bakshi, please join us. And he's the patron of our association, Mr. Ranjit Bakshi. I think this group on this stage are leading the industry. Of course, there are lots of leaders are maybe outside in the halls enjoying the trading and businesses. But I think it's an amazing gathering over here, especially with our sponsor, Mr. Mohammed and his group, Al Karyan Group. Really appreciate all of them. Thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed, on a personal level and on a corporate level. You like to give a word in Arabic on your language, please?
My word to see you guys here, and we are with you on this stage. This is my biggest word, and this is my big honor to meet with everyone here. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, Mr. Mohammed. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. حبيبنا الغالي. حبيبنا الغالي.